1. Longest title reign. When you think of dominance stretched to the breaking point, Vladimir Klitschko's run is the gold standard. From April 22, 2006 until November 28, 2015, he ruled the heavyweight division. That's 4,382 days as champion, almost 12 years without anyone able to pry the belts from him. 18 successful defenses? That's not just about keeping busy, that's about keeping everyone else locked out of the conversation. Klitschko's style wasn't fan-friendly in the way Tyson or Foreman flattened opponents, but it was brutally effective. His jab was like a battering ram, his clinching drained energy, and his patience wore fighters down. He didn't just beat opponents, he made them look clueless. Look at the names he handled. David Haye came in talking fireworks, and Klitschko shut him down with range control. Kubrat Pulev had youth, strength, and size. But Vladimir smashed him apart with clinical power shots. Alexander Povetkin, an Olympic champion with pedigree, couldn't even get started before being smothered. What made this reign unique was the consistency. Heavyweights usually suffer lapses. One bad night, one counter they didn't see coming, one mistake that changes everything. Klitschko went almost a decade without that moment. He trained like an engineer preparing blueprints. He stayed disciplined, and even when fights weren't entertaining, he never gave away control. Could anyone repeat it now? Honestly, no. The landscape is different. 4 sanctioning bodies mean belts are scattered. Politics force champions into mandatories with little say. Networks want big money fights, but not risky activity. Modern heavyweight champions defend once, maybe twice a year. To get close to 12 years, you'd have to stay active, healthy, and perfect for an entire era. Klitschko did it. Nobody else looks capable. 2. Most fights without being knocked down. Durability in boxing is one of those things you can't train. You can work on defense, you can sharpen reflexes, but the ability to take a shot is either there or it isn't. For George Chuvalo, it was there in spades. 93 fights, 0 knockdowns. That's not never stopped. He lost fights. Referees and doctors stepped in at times. But not once did Chuvalo's legs fold from a punch. Not once did he touch the canvas. And the names on his record prove how insane that is. Muhammad Ali twice. Both went the distance. Ali himself said Chuvalo was the toughest man he ever faced. Joe Frazier, one of the greatest pressure fighters and body punchers of all time, couldn't dent him. George Foreman, the most terrifying puncher of his generation, hammered Chuvalo with shots that would have ended anyone else's night. Chuvalo stayed upright until the referee saved him. This wasn't a padded career against journeymen. Chuvalo spent years as a high-level contender. In the most dangerous division, he ate punches from the biggest punchers and never touched the mat. Why does it matter? Because even legends fall. Tyson hit the deck. Lennox Lewis got stopped twice. Joe Louis, the greatest heavyweight of all time, was knocked down. Chuvalo? Never. That kind of durability is a freak occurrence. It's not about technique, it's about bone density, nerves, reflexes, and raw toughness. With modern heavyweight punchers delivering bombs and referees stopping fights earlier, no one is getting near 93 fights without a knockdown again. 3. Most rounds fought in a career. Now imagine that you've spent more than 4,000 rounds of your life trading punches under bright lights, in front of crowd, against the best available competition. That's Sam Langford's career. Langford's timeline ran from the early 1900s into the late 1920s. Officially, he fought over 300 professional bouts, though the real number is likely higher because record-keeping back then was spotty. What's certain is the mileage: over 4,000 rounds of boxing logged. Today's fighters, a 12-round fight is the max. Even if you fought 50 times and every fight went the distance, that's only 600 rounds. Langford did 6 times that, and he wasn't fighting soft touches. He fought champions, contenders, anyone willing to sign a contract. He was only around 5 feet 6 inches and fought as high as heavyweight, usually giving up massive size and weight. It didn't matter. He fought guys like Harry Wills, Sam McVeigh, Joe Jeanette, multiple times. These weren't exhibitions, these were wars. Langford wasn't just busy, he was relentless. That workload is unimaginable today. Medical suspensions alone would cut careers in half. Fighters now go 2 or 3 times a year. If you're lucky, you'll hit 200 career rounds. Langford's 4,000 is an alien number in comparison. The record isn't just about durability. It shows how different boxing was. Fighters fought every few weeks. They didn't wait for TV dates or promotional contracts. They fought because it was their job. And Langford, more than anyone else, lived inside the ring longer than anyone ever has. 4. Most pay-per-view buys ever. Money moves boxing, and no fight has moved it like Mayweather versus Pacquiao in 2015. For years, it was the what-if matchup. Pacquiao was the whirlwind southpaw, Mayweather the defensive genius. The world wanted it. Promoters dragged their feet. Networks fought over rights. Drug testing demands stalled everything. By the time it happened, both were past their absolute primes. But it didn't matter. The hype built for a decade, and the numbers proved it. 4.6 million pay-per-view buys in the US alone. Over $400 million in pay-per-view sales. Add the live gate in Las Vegas, which was another $72 million, and worldwide rights, and the fight cleared $600 million in revenue for one night of boxing. The fight itself wasn't explosive. Mayweather boxed cautiously. Pacquiao pressed in bursts, but it was a tactical contest. Critics said it under-delivered, but by then, the event had already broken every financial record in the sport. Since then, only Mayweather vs. McGregor in 2017 came close, pulling 4.3 million buys. But with piracy, streaming, and the decline of the traditional pay-per-view, 4.6 million may never be touched. It's not just a boxing record, it's the single biggest event in combat sports history. When people talk about boxing being both sport and business, this fight is the case study. The fight wasn't the greatest, but as a spectacle, it set a record that probably dies with the pay-per-view model itself. 5. Youngest world champion in boxing history. Wilfred Benítez owns a record that still sounds unreal. At just 17 years old, he became the youngest world champion in boxing history. No padded record, no hand-picked opponent. He beat Antonio Cervantes in 1976, a seasoned champion with over 60 wins, and walked away with the WBA junior welterweight title. 17? That's high school age, and he was outclassing a world champion on live television. Benítez wasn't a knockout machine. He was something else entirely. They called him El Radar because his defense was otherworldly. He read punches before they even landed. Fighters would throw 3, 4, 5 shots and come up empty. His reflexes were sharp, but it was his composure that stood out. He looked like a veteran trapped inside a teenager's body. And he didn't stop at one division. By 1979, he was a 2-division champion after outpointing Carlos Palomino for the welterweight crown. In 1981, he climbed again and knocked out Maurice Hope with a single right hand to take the WBC super welterweight belt. 3 world titles across 3 weight classes before he was even 23. He faced legends like Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, and Thomas Hearns, proving he belonged in that golden era. Even when he lost, he was never embarrassed. His skills made every opponent work harder than they wanted. His career later unraveled, but the fact remains, no one has matched what Wilfred Benítez did at 17. That record is untouched, and likely untouchable. 6. Most title defenses in middleweight history. When you talk about consistency in the middleweight division, the conversation ends with Bernard Hopkins. Between 1995 and the 2005, Hopkins defended the middleweight crown 20 consecutive times. Middleweight isn't like heavyweight, where size often dictates dominance. It's a weight class loaded with speed, stamina, and skill. Champions usually rise to higher divisions or fall victim to younger challengers. Hopkins refused to do either. He stood his ground and cleaned out an entire generation. He fought slick boxers like William Joppy, rugged punchers like Antoine Ecolas, and legends like Felix Trinidad. Each time he adjusted, Hopkins wasn't a one-style fighter. He could fight rough in the clinch, pick shots from the outside, or slow the pace down until opponents got frustrated. His nickname, the Executioner, wasn't just branding, it was the way he dissected people. What makes this record harder to appreciate is the span of time. 10 years is enough for careers to start and end. Hopkins was defending the same belt while multiple waves of contenders came and went. And he did it while aging into his 40s. 20 defenses in one division is the sort of number that will likely never be matched. Modern fighters jump divisions for bigger paydays. Sanctioning bodies strip champions for failing to juggle mandatories. Hopkins stuck around and stacked win after win until he set a mark that defines his legacy. 7. Only heavyweight champion to retire undefeated. The heavyweight division has chewed up every champion at some point. Every big name from Jack Johnson to Tyson Fury has had a loss or a stumble. The only one who escaped without a defeat was Rocky Marciano. Marciano retired in 1956 with a perfect record, 49 wins, 0 losses, 43 knockouts. No draws, no contests, no comebacks to spoil it. He walked away clean. Now, you can debate the size of his opponents. At 5 feet 10 inches and around 185 pounds, Marciano was closer to a modern cruiserweight. but you can't debate the results. He fought Joe Louis, faded but still dangerous, Jersey Joe Walcott, Ezzard Charles, and Archie Moore, all Hall of Famers. And he beat them all. Marciano didn't have the polish of Ali or the explosiveness of Tyson. His gift was raw pressure. He threw punches until the other man broke. He fought through cuts, bruises, and knockdowns. He had no reverse gear. The fact that nobody else has done it at heavyweight says everything. Lennox Lewis, Tyson Fury, Vladimir Klitschko, all great. All beaten at least once. Heavyweight is too unpredictable. One punch can undo everything. Marciano managed to avoid that for his entire career. The record has stood for nearly 70 years, and given how careers are managed today, it might stand forever. Marciano's 49-0 is the perfect storm of toughness, matchmaking, and timing. Nobody else at heavyweight has managed to leave with 0 blemishes. 8. Most fights in a single year. Activity is a dying art in modern boxing. 2 fights a year is considered active now. But in 1948, Sugar Ray Robinson fought 21 times in a single year. That number is absurd in any era. 21 fights means fighting almost every 2 weeks, sometimes more. And Robinson wasn't padding his record against nobodies. He fought contenders, veterans, and top-tier fighters across the year. He lost only once, to Jake LaMotta, and then avenged it immediately. Robinson's year tells you 2 things. First, fighters back then lived in the ring. They didn't have long layoffs or luxury training camps. Second, Robinson was just that good. He could fight constantly without breaking down, and he had the skill to handle it. Compare that to today. Canelo Alvarez has had stretches where he fought 3 or 4 times in a year, and that was considered extraordinary. 21 fights in 12 months is unimaginable now. Between medical suspensions, promotional politics, and fighter safety standards, nobody is even attempting to touch that record. Robinson wasn't just active, he was dominant. By the end of 1948, he had built the foundation of a career that would eventually be called the greatest of all time. 21 fights in 1 year is a number that belongs to another era entirely. 9. Longest gap between title wins. Most fighters peak, decline, and fade away. Very few can climb back after years in the wilderness. George Foreman didn't just climb back, he broke the sport's timeline. Foreman first won the heavyweight championship in 1973, destroying Joe Frazier in 2 rounds. He lost the belt to Muhammad Ali in the Rumble in the Jungle a year later. After a few more fights, he walked away from boxing in 1977. That should have been the end. But a decade later, Foreman came back, older, slower, heavier, but somehow calmer and smarter. People laughed at first. They thought he was chasing a paycheck. Then he kept winning and winning. In 1994, 21 years after his first reign, Foreman shocked the world by knocking out Michael Moorer to reclaim the heavyweight title. At 45 years old, he became the oldest heavyweight champion in history. That gap, more than 2 decades between championships, is a record that defines the word comeback. Think about it. Entire generation of heavyweights had come and gone. Holmes, Tyson, Spinks, Bowe. Foreman had fought in the Ali Frazier era and then returned to beat a champion of the 1990s. Nobody else in boxing history has ever bridged that kind of gap. That evolution is what made the record possible, and it's what makes it untouchable. 10. Most titles in different weight classes. Boxing's obsession with pound-for-pound greatness usually comes down to one number. How many divisions did you conquer? That crown belongs to Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao's resume reads like a tour through boxing's weight ladder. He started as a flyweight champion at 112 pounds. He finished as a champion at 154 pounds. In between, he won official world titles in 8 weight classes. 8? Nobody else has done it. Oscar De La Hoya won 6. Mayweather and Pacquiao's rivalries always get compared, but even Floyd topped out at 5. Pacquiao smashed the ceiling. And these weren't cherry-picked titles. He fought Marco Antonio Barrera, Eric Morales, Juan Manuel Marquez, Ricky Hatton, Miguel Cotto, and Antonio Margarito. He won against legends, not placeholders. Pacquiao didn't just climb the scale, he stayed effective. His speed, southpaw angles, and volume carried up division after division. Even when he gave away size, his relentlessness made up for it. 8 divisions is probably the cap. With more titles available now, fighters can collect belts. But the leap across so many classes requires more than politics. It requires real greatness. Pacquiao stretched from 112 to 154 pounds and beat elite fighters at every step. That's why his record sits at the very top of modern boxing. Funny thing about boxing records, they're not just numbers on paper. They're stories of grind, obsession, and moments that might never come again. That's what makes revisiting them so addictive. So, what record do you think will actually stand the test of time? Let me know down below. And if you're curious about how legends are really made, stick around, there's a lot more to come.